Everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the Boomer Talk podcast. I'm Jordan, aka One Up Analytics. My co-host is Taylor, aka Somebody's Gun, and today we have a very special guest, the one and only BELAEU. I'm pretty sure everybody knows Bella, but he's definitely one of the best pro boomer Fortnite players out there in competitive Fortnite. So it's gonna be really interesting to hear his perspective on a few of our topics. But
Yeah.
let's talk about what we think we're going to see from the new season. It got delayed by about a week, but we could talk about what we want to see from the new meta, what we think we're going to see, what we think we're going to see in terms of map changes, especially with the mythic POIs. And Bella, you could start us out.
Yeah. So simply, it's a huge topic, and my short take is that I don't think it will be such a huge change, like the community is saying, like community is expecting. Like everyone is saying, it's gonna be like completely underwater, and a new game, new mechanics and stuff like that. I don't think that will happen. I think it will be kind of minor. It might be some more water, but usually I think we will have the same POIs mostly. Maybe the mythic ones will change a bit, but the traditional POIs will stay, and that's about it. Not a huge change. That's my short take.
Taylor, what about you?
So we're coming into the summer patch, right? It always seems that during the
Oh
summer they
yeah.
do something that makes it easier for newer players and players not as experienced to be good at the game. So I think I'd expect something in the game that is going to help newer players get introduced to Fortnite. Um, I think we've seen enough now that won't be in competitive, but there will be some sort of intro vehicle object, something that's gonna be, all over social media, gonna blow up. And like Bella said, I don't expect the map to change. Typically from season to season, there isn't huge changes. There might be a couple, something that has to do with the event, but I wouldn't expect a massive overhaul of the map.
Um, yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I'm kind of interested to see what happens with the mythic POIs. Like, I think that at least from a competitive perspective, it's not playing out the way that they thought it was going to play out. I think that okay, so I think when they're putting in the mythic spots, they thought it was like high risk, high reward type location. You drop there, it's like you have decent chance. It gets hot drops, decent chance of dying, but if you get out of there alive, you have really good loot. And from like in like a pub standpoint, that I guess tends to happen because people drop wherever. From a competitive standpoint, you have players calling out drop spots, and like everybody knows where other players are landing. You don't want to contest each other off spawn to scuff each other's games and stuff like that. So what you wind up having is certain players getting mythic POIs uncontested, and they're coming out of there with the best loot in the game. So it really takes away from like that high risk, high reward type drop spot, which is what I think they were going for with mythic POIs. And I think if they're gonna continue to try to have a high risk, high reward drop spot in the game, there definitely needs to be changes there. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah. I completely agree with, like, it needs to be changed. But I would say, from what I've understood, or like my theory, I guess, I feel like Epic was pretty happy with mythic POIs, because I feel like all the way in chapter 2 they have pushed people to engage more fights, have more fights happen, and have more people die, so there's less life and less lag in the end game. I think they've achieved that with the mythic POIs and the point formats. I would say they're kind of happy with it, but what's going wrong is that the community reaction hasn't been that good.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they will tweak those mythic POIs. What I hope we would see, and what I think we will see, is something along the lines of mythic POIs not dropping mythic items, but they will drop like golden scar, for example. I guaranteed golden scar, and no launch pad, for example. In that case, it will still be a kind of a high risk, high reward, but it wouldn't be so overpowered that it would enable people to boost everyone they see.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of expect to see.
Yeah. So something definitely needs to happen in terms of like the drum gun and the Brutus minigun, from competitive perspective. Um, in terms of like changes you'd want to see, are there any changes in terms of like movement that you want to see? Do you want launch pads still in? Do you want them out of the game? Do you want other types of movement in the game?
I don't know which one I prefer, but there's two options. So either you will remove launch pads and all mobility in altogether. I think it's fine. Or then you add more mobility items with the launch pad. Only a launch pad in the game is not that good for anyone. So there's two options. I don't know which one I prefer. But what I would like to see is a map change in a way that would make the competitive like landing spots more balanced. So the issue now is that you have rivers going from agency to like the edge zones, but they're like all down flowing downhill. So you can't really use them to rotate from edge to center. But I think the map design should be in the way where every edge POI could have an equal chance of rotating into the center zone. So I think they should like change those rivers, for example, and the zone distribution. I don't know if you have talked about this before or noticed it before, but the zone distribution is not like uniform, not a flat distribution. It heavily favors zones on going like southeast zones, the hill zone southeast. You see that in every FNCS, squad FNCS, duo FNCS, even in solos you saw that. So I would love to see more like uniform distribution, every zone being equal pretty much.
Yeah, and I think that's partially because like the north west corner of the map is so water heavy, and so I think they're just like the way that the game is programmed in terms of circles. It's hard to have zones pull up that way because so much of it is just kind of like dead space there with the water.
But I think that's bad design. That's my point.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Taylor, what do you think?
4 is kind of a little more map mobility. And as far as launch pads, it has made people so lazy. I wouldn't even say lazy. It's just like destroyed anyone that tries to rotate properly after fifth zone. So if like you're trying to rotate through a zone here and you're on the opposite side of fifth or 50-50, whatever you want to call it, you will get absolutely punished because everyone's just sitting in their cone waiting for someone to drop a launch pad, and you can't actually rotate that zone without a launch pad. You just have to sit there, wait for everyone, and hopefully a pad gets dropped. Most people will have them. They seem to have a decent spawn percentage, but it really, I would like to see the game played more like Chapter 2 Season 1 as opposed to Chapter 2 Season 2, because I think that really promoted smart plays, good rotations, and I'm in a similar vein as Bella. Either completely remove the launch pads or rotation items, or add a little bit more that gives some flexibility to your rotations.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're definitely right on there. And for like from your perspective as a coach, I'm sure like it pains you to see people just like relying on launch pads constantly. Like if you have a far rotate, you're just kind of hoping, if you don't have a launch pad, you're just hoping that somebody around you places one, and that's it. And then if they don't, then you're just kind of screwed. But yeah. Well, anyway, to move on to the next topic, I guess this is sort of related to coaching. Let's talk about VOD reviewing a little bit. Zate tweeted, I think it was yesterday, about the fact that he has only ever VOD reviewed about 5 to 10 hours in his whole Fortnite career. So that was interesting to hear, because Zate's definitely one of the best players in the game right now. And I mean, he's been one of the best players in the game for a long time. But yeah, I think VOD reviewing is like generally pretty well respected way to improve. Taylor, what do you think about this, especially from your perspective as a coach?
Zate's hurting my bread right now. Like my whole brand is built around VOD reviewing, educational content. But in a way, I agree. Like, if you're just getting into the game and you have no idea how to play, it does you no good to watch people play the game. It maybe pros, but watching yourself, you don't know what you did wrong. Like, you have no idea what went wrong if you don't know the game well enough. So you have to have a certain level of knowledge within the game to be able to fully take advantage of VOD reviews. And then something that I see a lot when working with players is they'll VOD review and write down like 30 different things that went wrong during a game. And then come back to me and be like, hey, I saw 30 different things. It's not helping. It's like, no shit. You have 30 different things you're trying to work on at once. That's never going to work. If you pick one or two each week or until you see improvements in them and focus on those, that is how you effectively VOD review. But you need to identify themes or errors and then go in and practice those, put them into practice. Once you see improvements, then work on other things instead of just trying to be like, here's what went wrong. Okay, I know what happened now. Cool. I'm not going to do anything about it. I just know what went wrong. But Bella, you commented on Zay's post. I'd be interested to hear your take.
Yeah. So when I was at my peak, when I was at my best in Fortnite, let's say season 8 to season X, I never VOD reviewed. I didn't do any VOD reviews going into World Cup finals. I didn't do almost any of it in trios, and we still did that well. But I've done some in chapter 2. So for a player, I would say VOD reviewing is helpful when you don't really understand the meta, I guess. For me, if I don't understand something, then I VOD review it. But if I understand and if I play the game and I see something and I instantly realize this is going wrong or something like that, if it clicks, I don't need to VOD review in that case. That's my short take on it. So I would say it depends on your own expertise, your own level of confidence in the knowledge of the game, and your game plan, how well structured your game plan is, if things go according to your plan or not. Usually, for most people, I would still say VOD viewing is helpful, but maybe for the top pros, not so much. So, yeah. And I agree with Taylor's point of marginal gains. You can't improve 30 things at once. You need to focus on one simple thing at once and improve that thing by 1%, and then you can proceed to the next thing, and small gains, and that's the way to improve.
Yeah. I mean, I could see from some perspective. I mean, VOD reviewing is something that people do in every esport. People do it in traditional sports like baseball, basketball, whatever it is. Watching film is a huge part of training. But I could see from some perspective why it would be less helpful in Fortnite, because if you're talking about basketball, for example, you could watch film on the team that you're matching up against, and you could see their strengths and their weaknesses, how to take advantage of those weaknesses. But when you're talking about Fortnite, there's 100 players on the map. If you're talking about duos, there's 50 separate teams. You don't know who you're fighting at any given moment, and so just because some team's weakness, or one player's weakness, you don't necessarily know who you're fighting right now and how you could use that in the moment. So the fact that it's not a 1v1 matchup, I could definitely see where people are coming from, saying that it might be less useful than it is in other games, other sports. But I still think to be able to go back into replay, and especially with replay mode, to be able to kind of get a more bird's eye view of the situation, what's happening and how it's unfolding. I think that could be really helpful, especially with identifying trends. Because if you're just in a box and something goes wrong for you, you don't necessarily know how everything was developing outside. So yeah, I don't know. From my perspective, I think it's super helpful. I think that also, I mean, I'm biased here, but I think using stats and to track trends through VOD reviews, I think that's super helpful as well. I think nobody really uses that right now. I'd like to see people start using that more. But yeah, I don't think we are at our peak in terms of a community in terms of like practicing and improving as players. Do you guys have anything else on that topic you want to talk about?
Yeah, I could add on that. Like the bird's eye view, like looking at situations from a bird's eye. So I have this thing that I call a butterfly effect, where like small events change the game drastically. So, for example, let's say Pleasant. There's a lot of like landing spots nearby Pleasant. There's like the lighthouse and the Pleasant house and whatever. So a lot of the time, there's small events that really change how the situations play out. Some fights take 1 minute longer than they should take, and some fights are like instant. There's sometimes no fights at all. So if you're gonna look for trends, you need to look at a lot of games, because there's a lot of times where stuff happens that you can't really prepare for. Like it's unexpected because of those small minor events that happened in the game before that you had no clue of knowing about. So if you want to look at like situations from like high above, you need to have a huge like amount of data to know the trends and know the chance of like something unexpected happening, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
Like you can't really learn a lot from one single game, because
Right.
there might be those butterfly effects going on and you can't really expect that to happen every game.
Yeah, exactly. And also that's where like what I'm talking about with stat tracking is if you're watching like 100 games or something like that, because obviously you need that much data in order to identify trends. If you're just watching them, even if you're taking notes on these things, like it's hard as a human to pick up on trends. Like you may think you're picking up on a certain trend, but like the human brain is not the best at identifying trends. We tend to see trends that are not there, or miss trends that are there. So taking like a more robust approach to VOD reviewing, in my opinion, would be a great way for people to improve. But
And just to wrap us up here, I guess, on the VOD reviewing before we beat the dead horse, but there's meta creators and then there's people who follow the meta. So if you're creating the meta that everyone is now adapting to and you're striving, like you said, you're one of the top players, there's not going to be much to VOD review because it's only yourself. Like you're the only one doing these kinds of things, and everyone now is trying to catch up to you. So for everyone else, it's going to be important. Okay, what the hell is this person doing that's making them so successful game in, game out within this meta? And that's just also another piece that, I mean, we've seen Zayt at the top for a while, so I would consider him one of the meta creators because he's constantly pushing what should be done in different game modes. I mean, he's not known as a solo player, but damn, he did well in FNC as solos, and I did not expect that. So, you know, that's just a little difference that he probably means because he's always looking to do the next thing, not necessarily what someone else was trying to do.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Like there's such a big difference. Like if we're talking about someone who's like an intermediate player, a semi-professional player, whatever you want to call it, like you will absolutely get value out of watching top tier pros play Fortnite. Like and breaking down their play. Yeah, I like it. There is definitely a difference between that and top tier pros watching themselves. But like if you're below that level, you're kind of like on the cusp of being a pro, there's no doubt that you're going to get value from VOD reviewing. Don't doubt that for a second. Anything else from you guys or?
I can kind of add on again.
Yeah, sure.
I would like to say that at the moment, the way Chapter 2 has been shaping, I would still argue that your time usage would be more efficient grinding mechanics than VOD reviewing for like intermediate players, because it's so mechanic heavy. Chapter being so far, it's all about fighting. Like even the end game is about finding impact frags, refresh, and that's mostly mechanical stuff. So in most scenarios, I would say it's very efficient to use grind mechanics like arena and fighting in customs, whatever. Like, that's another topic, but that's what I would like to say. That's my opinion at the moment.
Taylor, what do you think about that?
I think that's a fair shake. I mean, the way the rotations work out, you can't really rotate mid game without running into people. So you're either gonna hard disengage or you're gonna have to try and take a fight and win it. And then, like Bella said, end game, you can't win games and even come top 5 without getting impact frags. So being able to take box fights, build fights in mid game, and just having those mechanics hitting your shots is super important. And I mean, there's some things we see in chapter 2, but like I talked about with the launch pads, you can't VOD review how to wait for someone to drop a launch pad to rotate to 5th zone. Like, that just doesn't work. So I would definitely agree with that point that it's less important in this current meta, especially with controller kids hopping in boxes.
That's also true. It's also true. But before we get down that road, let's move on to the third topic, which is, it's kind of a general topic, just about organizations' current role in competitive Fortnite. It's very different from what we see in other esports. A lot more relaxed, a lot more loose. They have a lot less power over players. Players definitely have a lot of power in competitive Fortnite. Do you guys have an opinion on where you'd like to see, like, the structure of competitive Fortnite go? Do you think it's fine the way it is? And I guess especially in respect to organizations.
I'll go ahead first, considering I don't want to be biased based on what you say, considering you have actual experience within an org. But I like the way it is now, and I think we're seeing Fortnite empower players to really take advantage of this opportunity. In a lot of other esports, you need the backing of an org to be successful. Mm-hmm. But within Fortnite, we see names pop up all the time that have no org attached to them. Like, they're simply just someone who grinded mechanics, played scrims, or I'm not even going to say what they did. They played the game, worked hard, and then were able to achieve at the highest level. Like, that's really cool in my opinion. And I think we're starting to see orgs understand how to take advantage of Fortnite, because it's different than other esports. You can't just make a team and then have that team achieve at the highest level. Like, it's a combination of content creation, support, and it's a variety of things that you see orgs now pushing out and trying to achieve, instead of simply going okay, we have to build a team. It's going to be like a franchise, but it's not actually franchised, and going for that traditional esports route, which I'm really liking to see the orgs adapt to what Fortnite has allowed for players, because it's not org friendly. It's simply not, but you can find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't consider myself biased, to be honest. Even though I'm in an organization, like, obviously as an individual, you have to look for the maximum benefit for yourself, I guess. So I don't think I'm biased. If I would have to choose between the current state and, for example, a well-developed franchise league, for example, like League has, LEC, LCS, whatever, I would opt with this current state. Like, I think franchise leagues have really bad things for the game and the players. So, for example, a franchise league is all about money. Well, not all about, but mostly about money, investors' money. And the game changes from players playing well for themselves into players playing well for the investors. Because if they don't play well at the top, the investors are going to lose money, and they kick the players. And I think that's bad for the players in the long run. That's my personal view. So, kind of from that point of view only, I prefer the current state where there's no, like, monetary pressure on players. It's just you playing to be the best that you can be. And I think that's really cool to see. And it's awesome that you can get to the top pretty easily. Like you don't need an organization to get to the top. I think that's a huge value in Fortnite. But at the same time, things could be improved. Like I would hope the current state to get better. We would get more organizations and not in a franchise league format. For example, if we had a like longevity plan, the competitive roadmap, if that was actually well planned out for this whole year, we would see more orgs getting involved. Like we only know about solo FNCS, trio FNCS. After that, we have no info. And even when we know these things, we don't know about the prize pools. We don't know anything else.
Sure.
We only know about solo FNCS, trio FNCS. We don't know the length. We don't know anything. So we could improve the current state pretty easily, in my opinion, and it would be a benefit to every party involved. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't mean that you were biased. I didn't want to get biased based on what you said, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we definitely see like even not just players that are up and coming who are unsigned. We have players like Frosty out of Brazil, who's like obviously the best player in Brazil. He absolutely dominated in the FNCS Invitational, and he's just not on any org, which is kind of like weird in a way. Like, do you think that like there's questions for Bella, I guess. Do you think that like orgs are scared to commit to players because of what you just said? We don't really have a great roadmap of what's to come in terms of prize pools. And like even we have we know what this season is going to be, this upcoming season, and then the season after that. And Fortnite has even said that they're going to have FNCS every season this year. So we kind of know, and that's the most information we've ever gotten, but it's still not that much information.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a risk to invest into into Fortnite now. Like, I could say that even my path in Helsinki Reds, my organization, might be ending because of how Fortnite is shaping. Like, it's not improving, at least from our perspective, my perspective, the organization's perspective. So I don't think how any org still can really get a lot of benefit from Fortnite, like unless they do a lot of content creation. Like I think the content creation is the key to succeed in Fortnite as an organization. I think that's like the necessity, like absolute must have. So I think it's still bad. I feel like this kind of risky to say, but I feel like a lot of the orgs that are involved in Fortnite are scammy, like very shady, and I would question a lot of the orgs in Fortnite because there's a lot of orgs that are involved only in Fortnite and they somehow still have money, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like the way Epic handles things, it has ups and downs. So we have a lot of shady orgs because there's no regulation and whatever. And that is a bad thing because then we have players getting scammed, shady, like scammy events that just look for money and whatever. Like, I would hope to see more valid orgs. I would hope to see the like big organizations with experience get involved in Fortnite, and that's not the case currently. So there's still things going wrong, even though it seems from the outside perspective that there's more and more like organization involvement. But the most organizations involved are pretty shady. Like they might be money laundering or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. It's difficult to say.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. We do see, I'm going to call them orgs because I don't think they're actual orgs. Pop up in Fortnite all the time. Like,
Yep.
you know, when Enterprise Gaming popped up, I was like, whoa, okay, this is weird. Like, how is this random team getting money? But like, you can look into that, and this guy has investment money. He seems legitimate. There's a real business set up for this. And for some of these orgs in Fortnite, there's no information behind them. It's literally just someone on Twitter promoting themselves, creating an org, and then I mean, I don't understand the benefit of that. Like, what do these guys gain from doing this besides just like screwing with people's lives? It makes no sense to me.
Same. Like I still don't understand how how organizations get money from Fortnite, except for content creation. Like that's the only way I see money like being generated from this. That's my take.
It's got to be the content creation. Like that is the only way. You're not going to survive off of a constantly changing prize pool and percentage of that. Like that's not, you can't be an organization and then just be essentially gambling on your players, hopefully making enough money, and Epic throwing out enough money for you to survive on a percentage of your players' prize pool. Like that just doesn't make sense, you know? So
Yeah, and it's not even that. Like even the spectating. If you would improve the spectating of Fortnite, you would benefit of the organizations. Like the organizations would be able to gain some more value without those huge prize pools. And even the spectating is pretty poor. Like when I was in the World Cup finals solos, I think I appeared on the like my gameplay was on the live stream for like 5 seconds during the whole 6 games of the finals. So that's not really like that's kind of bad. So you would somehow have to improve the spectating experience so that every player would get their own spotlight and whatever. And I guess that's a huge issue for Epic. But if that could be improved, you would benefit the organization, and we would see more involvement most likely. Like it could both be those like small things that would matter.
Yeah. I mean, and to add on to that, it's kind of like a separate topic a little bit, but it's still related to what we were just talking about. What do you think about like the importance of players branding themselves as not just a competitive player, but also a content creator? I know me and Taylor have talked about this off the podcast a bunch, but in terms of like the value that you provide to an org, if you do content creation, and even like beyond the org, beyond the game, like the value you get out of being a content creator. What do you think about that?
I see that as a 2 paths you can take. So again, you can like if your main goal is to get signed to an organization, then yeah, you need to get involved into like branding yourself, making content and stuff like that. That is a must-have. But there's the other path. I think you can go. I don't know if there's an example. So you could be a player that only competes and does nothing else. Like Mitro is kind of like one of those players. Doesn't really stream. They didn't really have YouTube highlights before. He just played the game well, and that's it. Like you have 2 choices. Which one do you want to go down to? Like you either you just play the game at a high level, or you create content and most likely play the game at a less high level. I think it's 2 options you have. I don't really think. I don't know which one is better. I guess more money wise, I guess content creation is better, but at the same time, it's time off from your actual gameplay in most cases. So it's a trade off.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking, because like right now, like we just said, organizations can't. There's really not much of a way for organizations to make money in competitive Fortnite unless their players are creating content to some extent. So like the way that they're getting money isn't even really on the competitive Fortnite. It's like the content creation. So it's just like a very weird like structure currently. And I don't know. I guess I just would hope that there were some changes that shifted that a little bit, and that created some more revenue for organizations through the actual competition and the events. But yeah.
Well, I think we've seen some of the French organizations take advantage of that. So like MCES and Solary, they'll cast the events for their players. And that's eyes that they can put their sponsors on a screen that people come and watch. And that's essentially like where the orgs are going to make their money, is through sponsors and getting eyeballs on things. So I haven't seen a lot of other orgs do that besides those 2 I just named. There was, I believe there was a Spanish org doing it a few months ago. I haven't seen them recently. But that's another huge value add that an org can bring to a player. So not only is the player going to get them eyeballs, but it's going to go both ways because they're streaming events on their own. They're going into replay mode and watching them quasi live and being able to, provide more value than just highlights or outside of tournaments, which I think is something I'd like to see more orgs do in the future here.
Yeah, same. Like that's a good point. That's a really good point. But I would like to point out in those cases, those contracts might be really shady or bad for the players. Like they will require you to like live stream more and like push out content. Like for that content to be actually healthy, in my opinion, it would have to be in a way where the players don't really lose much. For example, like the solo streams, like you had solo players playing the game 24/7, like the live stream was going 24/7 almost, and I think that's bad because I feel like, I'm not sure, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure their contracts had a like line of like somebody has to be online at this time playing, and it has to be live stream. So there's like a more pressure on the player, and that's also kind of a bad thing. You would have to implement it in a way where you don't really take anything away from the player, or you provide him enough compensation, like more money, pretty much. So that's
you
also
could do
kind
that
of
through the replay files though. Like I believe
yeah.
MCES was doing it through replays. Like it wasn't even the players required to stream events. They were simply doing it with the tools in game. How good or bad they are. You're able to do that and provide a cast over that, which will ultimately give you what your sponsors want, and that's eyeballs.
Yeah. There's different ways, but I just want to point out that the contracts might be a little shady in those cases. So,
Bill, from your perspective, I mean, you don't have to say it about your own personal situation, but do you feel like players right now are getting enough from orgs for, I guess, the value that they're providing orgs?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I don't really study economics, so I don't know much about marketing. But my view is that at the moment, Fortnite players get less than they should get. It depends on the player a lot, because then you have players like Mitro who get like 10 plus K in a month or something like that. So it depends on who you are. Like if you're actually a huge name, like something like Savage, yeah, I guess you get compensated in that case. Like that's a good compensation. But for most players, nah, it's not. It's pretty bad. But at the same time, I would say this: like Fortnite is like it's a risk for the organizations. Like it's really risky to invest in. So I understand it completely, but still, I would say most players deserve more compensation.
Another question for you. From my knowledge, you're the only Fortnite player ever to sign with the Helsinki Reds. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
They're mostly a CS:GO organization, or
Yeah, you used to have to do.
So that just why? I have to ask why. Like that's so puzzling to me. I would think they either would see success and invest more, or go the opposite way. I don't know how deep you can go into this, but it's confusing to me when teams are signing multiple players that you've been the only one for so long now.
Well, okay, so yeah, again, I don't really know economics that much, but I would argue the opposite way. I think it's more stupid for an organization to have multiple players instead of one. I think having one player is the best option in Fortnite. I think that's my honest take, because you can like the fans can experience almost all of Fortnite competition through one player, to be honest. Because even if hREDS had like two players, very often we would be in the same lobby playing, most likely. And what's the added value there? I don't really know. So I would argue it's better for an organization to have only one Fortnite player. It looks more shady to me have more players. That's my short take. I don't know.
And no, that's an interesting take, especially when having multiple players, like you may play together, but it's never really going to be a situation where multiple or the whole team is, let's say, NRG, like they're all NRG.
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't happen in Fortnite. We saw Misfits sign a trio back when they played trios, but then they split up, and now that again does no good for them. So it's an interesting take. I've never thought about that.
Yeah, I would really argue this better. It's more risky to sign more players. That's my honest take.
Cool, thank you.
Do you ever think that that could happen where players would be like bound to playing with other players on the same org as them?
Not in
No.
Fortnite. No, never gonna happen. No, never gonna happen. That's never going to
I
happen.
agree. Just interesting.
And
Like,
it's a good thing. I think it's mostly a good thing. But yeah.
yeah. Do you guys have anything else on orgs? Otherwise, we could wrap that topic up.
Good, sir.
Yeah, I'm good. No need to add anything, I guess.
All right.
I don't want to bash on organization too much. Like,
Yeah.
I feel that's shady, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's move on to the rapid fire wrap up. So I got three quick questions that I want both your answers on. So the first one is, who is in your Fortnite Mount Rushmore? Start with Bella.
So that's an American concept, so I don't know if
Yeah.
I understood it like correctly, but like I would place Sate, Mongrel, Bison, and Mitro on that. Like that would be my picks.
Okay. Taylor.
Since Mount Rushmore's in the U.S., I'm going with 4 U.S. players: Zayt, Saf, Bugha, and Bizzle.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, if EU wants to build Mount Rushmore, well, I'll throw some of them in there. But
I mean, yeah, Mongrel has to be recognized. Like I think isn't he the most followed Fortnite player at the moment? I would argue that I think he is in Twitter and even Twitch.
I mean,
I think
if I
he has
was gonna
impact.
open it up to international, I think Aqua would have to be one. Just based on success, and I don't know.
Yeah, but the way I understand the concept is like, who are the like founding players of Fortnite, kind of, and Aqua wasn't really at the top in the beginning, like Mitro was, and Mongrel was. Like Mongrel was a huge name even like season 3, I think. So that's why I base my answer like this. So.
Yeah. I think it's like, yeah, kind of like founding, kind of just players that are integral to the game. So for me, I would say Bugha, Bizzle, Aqua, and the last one, you guys are gonna laugh at me, but Ninja. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
people are gonna laugh at me,
yeah.
but like, I feel like he's just so like embedded in the game, and I know he's not a competitive player anymore, but like,
Yeah.
I just feel it's weird to leave him out. He's just been such a big part of the game.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was focused on the like competitive side only. So yeah,
Yeah, that's
but
fair.
Ninja is like a huge thing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's been really good for the game, whether you like him or not, and both for the
Yep.
the casual and competitive side to help bridge that gap. So yeah, I would agree. I mean, as a competitive player, no, but as far as the whole game goes, yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, but I have to say like Ninja Battles was like it was really entertaining. Like it was awesome to watch like the Ninja Battles last week. Like it was really cool. Like it was like the old competition we had almost 2 years back. It was so awesome to watch.
Yeah. Interviews aside.
Yeah. Of course. But that gameplay was awesome. Like the actual gameplay was awesome.
All right. So the second question is, which mythic POIs do you guys think will still be on the map next season?
So which one will stay? Is that the question?
Yeah. Well, like, it doesn't have to be like one. Just like, which do you think mythic POIs are gone? Do you think certain of them will stay?
I have this weekend like theory that we will have some storyline of the oil rig turning into a refinery. That's my like new mythic POI and oil refinery, and I don't know, a storyline could be a possibility. I don't know.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say like similar thing. Like I think if there was one that I was gonna say, I think that the rig has a good chance of that. even if
Yeah.
it transforms a little bit. What do you think, Taylor?
I'd say Grotto. I don't think it'll stay how it is, but I think like the whole tunnel cave concept is pretty cool and unique to the game. So I'd like to see that stay, and hopefully it does.
Yeah. Yeah, the tunnel construct is really awesome. I think it's a good idea, like good addition to the game.
And last question to wrap it up. Where do you want Fortnite World Cup 2021?
I would love to say Paris or like Frankfurt, but the issue is people in those cities don't really speak English, so I'm like, nah. So I have to go with like San Francisco or something like that.
Taylor?
Raleigh, North Carolina. It's where Epic's headquartered. Like, why would it not be there? It's also the convention center is like 10 minutes from my apartment. So, I mean, it's super convenient for me.
Yeah, that's something that Epic probably thinks about when they're choosing their next spot. For me, I think I would like to see it in London. I think it'd be really cool to have it somewhere in Europe. But I honestly, I think it might be difficult to bring it outside the United States, just like logistically because they're based in the United States. So I would say if I had to say where I think it'll be, either in New York or LA. But yeah, other than that, I think that wraps it up for episode 3 of the Boomer Talk podcast. Thank you, Bella, so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything you want to say about where people could find you on social media? What you're doing right now that you want people to watch?
I guess you can follow me on Twitter. Hashtag is bestlasseu, so it's not BELAEU. So it's kind of, yeah, misleading, I guess.
Yeah, if you're
I would
watching the
respect that Twitter
stream,
follow.
if you're watching the stream, it's below Taylor's face right now. Sorry that I screwed up the thing. I guess
Yeah.
the way that we joined the Discord call messed it up. If you're watching it on YouTube, I'll probably fix that. But yeah, Taylor.
I mean, I won't plug one up again like I did last time. You can find me, Somebody's Gun, on all platforms. One word. That's where you can find me.
All right. Yeah. For me, One Up Analytics on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. But thank you again so much, Bella, for joining the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody who's been watching, listening on Twitch. And yeah, see you guys.